Good afternoon, beautiful people. Today I'm going to be talking to you about what I've been doing in my week, and I'm going to be reading to you from the Bible, and I'm going to be responding to what I'm reading, either attempting to explain it or just say whatever thoughts pop into my head in reaction to what I'm reading. On Monday, I went to Redcliffe War Memorial Pool. I was over the moon with happiness to see the inside of the pool again, instead of just seeing it from the outside looking in. One guy shared my lane, the lane I was using for part of the time I was there. He was cool with being able to share my lane, having to share my lane, because he chose to do things the way I wanted them done. He was able to turn around and start his laps without waiting for me to reach the end of the lane. God gave me a revelation that I don't have to push my idea that it's more likely that people will bump into each other if they constantly change lanes when they reach the end of the lane. I just have to focus on the clear benefits of not having to wait for someone before you start your lap. I didn't see my friend who works there, who I discussed bullying with previously. Another lady was there, and I'd never met her before. his journey and went to the eastern country. He looked and saw a well in a field. 3 flocks of sheep were lying there beside it, because the sheep were watered from this well. But a large stone covered the opening of the well. The shepherds would roll the stone from the opening of the well and water the sheep when all the flocks were gathered there. Then they would return the stone to its place over the well's opening. Jacob asked the men at the well, "My brothers, where are you from?" "We're from Haran," they answered. "Do you know Laban, grandson of Nahor?" Jacob asked them. They answered, "We know him." "Is he well?" Jacob asked. "Yes," they said, "and here is his daughter Rachel, coming with his sheep." Then Jacob said, "Look, it is still broad daylight. It's not time for the animals to be gathered. Water the flock, then go out and let them graze." But they replied, "We can't until all the flocks have been gathered and the stone is rolled from the well's opening. Then we will water the sheep." While he was still speaking with them, Rachel came with her father's sheep, for she was a shepherdess. As soon as Jacob saw his uncle Laban's daughter Rachel from his sheep, he went up and rolled the stone from the opening and watered his uncle Laban's sheep. Then Jacob kissed Rachel and wept loudly. He told Rachel that he was her father's relative, Rebekah's son. She ran and told her father. When Laban heard the news about his sister's son Jacob, he ran to meet him, hugged him, and kissed him. Then he took him to his house, and Jacob told him all that had happened. Laban said to him, "Yes, you are my own flesh and blood." After Jacob had stayed with him a month, Laban said to him, "Just because you're my relative, should you work for me for nothing? Tell me what your wages should be." Now Laban had 2 daughters. The older was named Leah, and the younger was named Rachel. Leah had tender eyes, but Rachel was shapely and beautiful. Jacob loved Rachel, and so he answered Laban, "I'll work for you 7 years for your younger daughter Rachel." Laban replied, "Better that I give her to you than to some other man. Stay with me." So Jacob worked 7 years for Rachel, and they seemed like only a few days to him because of his love for her. Then Jacob said to Laban, "Since my time is complete, give me my wife so I can sleep with her." So Laban invited all the men of the place and sponsored a feast. That evening Laban took his daughter Leah and gave her to Jacob, and he slept with her. And Laban gave his slave Zilpah to his daughter Leah as her slave. When morning came, there was Leah. So he said to Laban, "What is this you have done to me? Wasn't it for Rachel that I worked for you? Why have you deceived me?" Laban answered, "It is not the custom in this place to give the younger daughter in marriage before the firstborn. Complete this week of wedding celebration, and we will also give you this younger one in return for working yet another 7 years for me." And Jacob did just that. He finished the week of celebration, and Laban gave him his daughter Rachel as his wife. And Laban gave his slave Bilhah to his daughter Rachel as her slave. Jacob slept with Rachel also, and indeed he loved Rachel more than Leah, and he worked for Laban another 7 years. When the Lord saw that Leah was unloved, he opened her womb, but Rachel was unable to conceive. Leah conceived, gave birth to a son, and named him Reuben, for she said, "The Lord has seen my affliction. Surely my husband will love me now." She conceived again, gave birth to a son, and said, "The Lord heard that I am unloved, and has given me this son also." So she named him Simeon. She conceived again, gave birth to a son, and said, "At last my husband will become attached to me, because I have borne 3 sons for him." Therefore he was named Levi. And she conceived again, gave birth to a son, and said, "This time I will praise the Lord." Therefore she named him Judah. Then Leah stopped having children. So we see Jacob going on his journey. Wonder what might have been going through his mind when he came across a well. I'm sure he would have been frustrated seeing the sheep lying beside the well. He saw the stone covering the opening. I'm sure it would have bothered him, thinking of the heaviness of the stone. I'm wondering if it would have been a heavy stone, or if it would have been one that was easy to lift. It's amazing how God brought Jacob's relatives across his path when he was at the well. Think that they could have picked any day to go to the well, but they chose the same day that Jacob was there. So obviously God was moving behind the scenes to encourage them to go to the well at a particular time on a specific day. It's interesting that Jacob inquired about the health of Laban before he revealed the fact that he was connected with the people he was meeting from Haran. Perhaps they instantly recognized that they were family. As far as we know, though, they were just strangers, and Jacob was just being friendly, speaking of them like they were family without the knowledge that they were family. It's interesting that in Jacob's culture, animals weren't gathered in broad daylight. I'm wondering if this was something that was done early in the morning or late in the afternoon or in the evening. It could have been God motivating the sheep to be in that specific place at that time. God could have motivated the sheep to go straying and to go looking for greener pastures so Jacob could meet his wife. It was natural for Rachel to be there because her dad was a shepherd, so she was doing what shepherds do and helping to herd the sheep. It's interesting that Jacob starts talking about the issue of the sheep and the fact that they need water. But the second he sees Rachel, he decides to switch up from gasbagging and talking to getting straight to action. It's possible that his desire to kiss Rachel motivated him to roll the stone off the opening and impress her dad with his stone lifting and sheep watering ability. It's awesome how Laban initially greets Jacob and hugs him and kisses him. This would have been a kiss on the cheek. This is something that was common in the Middle Eastern world, and it's common in the Mediterranean world to have a kiss on both cheeks. Paul refers to greeting people with a holy kiss. That's the kind of kiss that was happening here. It's brilliant that Laban initially offers to give Jacob a job after he's been staying with him. I'm not sure if Jacob or Laban pressed the issue of Jacob working. Perhaps Laban was saying, you've been here for a month, you've been eating my food, you've been checking out my daughter, it's probably time you should get to work. And Jacob might have said, oh yeah, okay, I'll get to work, you've given me some food, you've given me some shelter. And Laban was basically saying to him, I don't expect you to just work for food and shelter. I'm going to give you something in return, so just tell me what you want. Now, when it says Leah had tender eyes, it kind of means that she was kind of plain looking. She was the kind of lady that people would have passed over because she wasn't strikingly beautiful. It's weird how some people just seem to capture your attention from the jump, and others, they just take a little longer to find appeal in our eyes, and some we may never find appeal in, even if we wait all our lives. There's different strokes for different folks, and people are attracted to different features. Perhaps with Jacob, what he found attractive was eyes. When Rachel saw that she was not bearing Jacob any children, she envied her sister. "Give me sons, or I will die," she said to Jacob. Jacob became angry with Rachel and said, "Am I in God's place, who has withheld offspring from you?" Then she said, "Here is my maid, Bilhah. Go sleep with her, and she'll bear children for me, so that through her I too can build a family." So Rachel gave her slave Bilhah to Jacob as a wife, and he slept with her. Bilhah conceived and bore Jacob a son. Rachel said, "God has vindicated me, yes, he has heard me and given me a son." So she named him Dan. Rachel's slave Bilhah conceived again and bore Jacob a second son. Rachel said, "In my wrestlings with God I have wrestled with my sister and won," and she named him Naphtali. When Leah saw that she had stopped having children, she took her slave Zilpah and gave her to Jacob as a wife. Leah's slave Zilpah bore Jacob a son. Then Leah said, "What good fortune," and she named him Gad. When Leah's slave Zilpah bore Jacob a second son, Leah said, "I am happy that the women call me happy." So she named him Asher. Reuben went out during the wheat harvest and found some mandrakes in the field. When he brought them to his mother Leah, Rachel asked, "Please give me some of your son's mandrakes." But Leah replied to her, "Isn't it enough that you have taken my husband? Now you also want to take my son's mandrakes?" "Well then," Rachel said, "he can sleep with you tonight in exchange for your son's mandrakes." When Jacob came in from the field that evening, Leah went out to meet him and said, "You must come with me, for I have hired you with my son's mandrakes." So Jacob slept with her that night. God listened to Leah, and she conceived and bore Jacob a fifth son. Leah said, "God has rewarded me for giving my slave to my husband," and she named him Isaac. Then Leah conceived again and bore Jacob a sixth son. "God has given me a good gift," Leah said. "This time my husband will honor me because I have borne 6 sons for him," and she named him Zebulun. Later Leah bore a daughter and named her Dinah. Then God remembered Rachel. He listened to her and opened her womb. She conceived and bore a son, and she said, "God has taken away my disgrace." So she named him Joseph and said, "May the Lord add another son to me." After Rachel gave birth to Joseph, Jacob said to Laban, "Send me on my way so that I can return to my homeland. Give me my wives and my children that I have worked for, and let me go. You know how hard I have worked for you." But Laban said to him, "If I have found favor with you, stay. I have learned by divination that the Lord has blessed me because of you." Then Laban said, "Name your wages, and I will pay them." So Jacob said to him, "You know how I have served you, and how your herds have fared with me. For you had very little before I came, but now your wealth has increased. The Lord has blessed you because of me. And now when will I also do something for my own family?" Laban asked, "What should I give you?" And Jacob said, "You don't need to give me anything. If you do this one thing for me, I will continue to shepherd and keep your flock. Let me go through all your sheep today and remove every sheep that is speckled or spotted, every dark-colored sheep among the lambs and the spotted and speckled among those female goats. Such will be my wages. In the future, when you come to check on my wages, my honesty will testify for me. If I have any female goats that are not speckled or spotted, or any lambs that are not black, they will be considered stolen." "Good," said Laban, "let it be as you have said." That day Laban removed the streaked and spotted male goats and all the speckled and spotted female goats, every one that had any white on it, and every dark-coloured one among the lambs, and he placed his sons in charge of them. He put a 3-day journey between himself and Jacob. Jacob meanwhile was shepherding the rest of Laban's flock. Jacob then took branches of fresh poplar, almond, and plane wood, and peeled the bark, exposing white stripes on the branches. He set the peeled branches in the troughs in front of the sheep, in the water channels where the sheep came to drink, and the sheep bred when they came to drink. The flocks bred in front of the branches and bore streaked, speckled, and spotted young. Jacob separated the lambs and made the flocks face the streaked sheep and the completely dark sheep in Laban's flocks. Then he set his own stock apart and didn't put them with Laban's sheep. Whenever the stronger of the flock were breeding, Jacob placed the branches in the troughs in full view of the flocks, and they would breed in front of the branches. As for the weaklings of the flocks, he did not put out the branches. So it turned out that the weak sheep belonged to Laban, and the stronger ones to Jacob. And the man became very rich. He had many flocks, female and male slaves, and camels and donkeys. You can imagine Rachel's frustration seeing her sister having babies and her sister's servants, and looking at herself with eyes of shame and being consumed by jealousy. She wasn't literally going to die if she didn't have any kids, but in those days, a woman's worth was determined by the fruit of her womb or the children she produced. This isn't the way that it should be, but that's how the world was back then. It's funny how Jacob jokes about being in God's place, like he has the ability to stop it from having children. I'm wondering if Jacob would have been reluctant to sleep with Bilhah. We know that he loved Rachel, so it would have been hard for him to sleep with other people. But what made it easier was knowing that he was doing it for his wife, who he loved the most. Dan means vindicated or judged. Naphtali means my wrestling. You can say that Rachel wrestled with God most of her life because she stole her dad's statues, which were devils worshipped as gods, when she left her dad's home, and she died in childbirth. So she always had this uneasy relationship with God, or it would have been easy for her to have an uneasy relationship with God. I hope that she sorted things out with God before she passed on. Gad means good fortune. Now there's a goddess called Fortuna, so the best translation of this in Hebrew is something like blessings, because Hebrews or Jews wouldn't give glory to a devil that's worshipped as a god. Asher means happy. I can imagine if her son was born today, she might be singing that song by Pharrell Williams. It's kind of weird that Jacob was used as a gigolo, how his body was used so his favourite wife could get mandrakes. That shows how deep a love that he had for his wife, that he didn't mind being used in exchange for food. Issachar means reward. Just like God rewarded Leah when she was travailing and seeking God for answers, He does the same for us. He opens the floodgates of heaven and pours out His blessings on us. Zebulun means honored. God can bring honor to all of us. I wish I knew what Dinah means, but I don't. Joseph means he adds. God can add to our lives, no matter how great our loss, no matter what suffering we're going through. God can multiply. When we've had things taken away from us, He can turn our mourning into dancing and turn our sorrow into joy. My friend had to watch her buddy fight through tears, having to raise his kids on his own after his wife passed on. At least he wasn't separated from her through divorce before she passed on. I praise God for the ways that He's working miracles for us all the time. He's keeping people alive. He's rescuing people from perilous situations. He's with us in our tribulation, no matter how difficult it is. He's ever present in our times of trouble. Now, Jacob heard what Laban's sons were saying. Jacob has taken all that was our father's and has built this wealth from what belonged to our father. And Jacob saw from Laban's face that his attitude toward him was not the same as before. The Lord said to him, "Go back to the land of your fathers and to your family, and I will be with you." Jacob had Rachel and Leah called to the field where his flocks were. He said to them, "I can see from your father's face that his attitude toward me is not the same as before, but the God of my father has been with me. You know that with all my strength I have served your father, and that he has cheated me and changed my wages 10 times, but God has not let him have me. If he said the spotted sheep will be your wages, then all the sheep were born spotted. If he said the streaked sheep will be your wages, then all the sheep were born streaked. God has taken away your father's herds and given them to me. When the flocks were breeding, I saw in a dream that the streaked, spotted, and speckled males were mating with the females. In that dream the angel of God said to me, 'Jacob,' and I said, 'Here I am.' And he said, 'Look up and see. All the males that are mating with the flocks are streaked, spotted, and speckled. For I have seen all that Laban has been doing to you. I am the God of Bethel, where you poured oil on the stone Makkah and made a solemn vow to me. Get up, leave this land, and return to your native land.' Then Rachel and Leah answered him, 'Do we have any portion or inheritance in our father's family? Are we not regarded by him as outsiders? For he has sold us and has certainly spent our purchase price. In fact, all the wealth that God has taken away from our father belongs to us and to our children. So do whatever God has said to you.' So Jacob got up and put his children and wives on the camels. He took all the livestock and possessions he had acquired in Paddan-aram, and he drove his herds to go to the land of Canaan to his father Isaac. When Laban had gone to shear his sheep, Rachel stole her father's household idols. And Jacob deceived Laban the Aramean, not telling him that he was fleeing. He fled with all his possessions, crossed the Euphrates, and headed for the hill country of Gilead. On the 3rd day Laban was told that Jacob had fled, so he took his relatives with him, pursued Jacob for 7 days, and overtook him in the hill country of Gilead. But God came to Laban the Aramean in a dream at night. "Watch yourself," God warned him. "Don't say anything to Jacob, either good or bad." When Laban overtook Jacob had pitched his tent in the hill country, and Laban and his relatives also pitched their tents in the hill country of Gilead. Laban said to Jacob, "What have you done? You have deceived me and taken my daughters away like prisoners of war. Why did you secretly flee from me, deceive me and not tell me? I would have sent you away with joy and singing with tambourines and lyres, but you didn't even let me kiss my grandchildren and my daughters. You have acted foolishly. I could do you great harm, but last night the God of your father said to me, 'Watch yourself, don't say anything to Jacob, either good or bad.' Now you have gone off because you long for your father's family. But why have you stolen my gods?" Jacob answered, "I was afraid, for I thought you would take your daughters from me by force. If you find your gods with anyone here, he will not live before our relatives point out anything that is yours and take it." Jacob did not know that Rachel had stolen the idols. So Laban went into Jacob's tent, Leah's tent, and all the tents of the 2 concubines, but he found nothing. When he left Leah's tent, he went into Rachel's tent. Now Rachel had taken Laban's household idols, put them in the saddlebag of the camel, and saddled him. Laban searched the whole tent, but found nothing. She said to her father, "Don't be angry, my lord, that I cannot stand up in your presence, for I am having my period." So Laban searched, but he could not find the household idols. Then Jacob became incensed and brought charges against Laban. "What is my crime?" he said to Laban. "What is my sin that you have pursued me? You've searched all my possessions. Have you found anything of yours? Put it here before my relatives and yours, and let them decide between the 2 of us. I've been with you these 20 years. Your ewes and female goats have not miscarried, and I have not eaten the rams from your flock. I did not bring you any of the flock torn by wild beasts. I myself bore the loss. You demanded payment from me for what was stolen by day or by night. There I was, and the heat consumed me by day, and the frost by night, and sleep fled from my eyes. For 20 years in your household I served you, 14 years for your 2 daughters, and 6 years for your flocks, and you have changed my wages 10 times. If the God of my father, the God of Abraham, the fear of Isaac, had not been with me, certainly now you would have sent me off empty-handed. But God has seen my affliction and my hard work, and has issued his verdict last night." Then Laban answered Jacob, "The daughters are my daughters, the sons my sons, and the flocks my flocks. Everything you see is mine. But what can I do today for these daughters of mine, or for the children they have born? Come now, let's make a covenant, you and I. Let it be a witness between the 2 of us." So Jacob picked out a stone and said it as a marker. Then Jacob said to his relatives, "Gather stones." And they took stones and made a mound, and then ate there by the mound. Laban named the mound Jegar-Shahadufa, but Jacob named it Galid. Then Laban said, "This man is a witness between you and me today." Therefore the place was called Galid, and also Mizpah, for he said, "May the Lord watch between you and me when we are out of each other's sight. If you mistreat my daughters or take other wives, though no one is with us, understand that God will be a witness between you and me." Laban also said to Jacob, "Look at this mound and the marker I have set up between you and me. This mound is a witness, and the marker is a witness that I will not pass between this man to you, and you will not pass beyond this mound and this marker to do me harm. The God of Abraham and the gods of Nahor, the gods of their father, will judge between us." And Jacob swore by the fear of his father Isaac. Then Jacob offered a sacrifice on the mountain and invited his relatives to eat a meal. So they ate a meal and spent the night on the mountain. Laban got up early in the morning, kissed his grandchildren and daughters, and blessed them. Then Laban left to return home. I can understand why Laban's sons were frustrated with Jacob. Although it's true what they were saying, that Jacob took their wealth and redistributed it to himself and his family, which he started with Rachel and Leah and his concubines. He did it with the full knowledge, with Laban's full knowledge of what was going on. I can understand why Jacob would have been scared for his life when he saw Laban's change in attitude. He started looking at him in a cranky way. He started to cast suspicious eyes at him. Jacob definitely needed a boost of confidence from our Creator and Savior, telling him that He would be with him. He's always present in our troubled times and in our happy times. You could understand if Rachel and Leah had been unwilling to go with Jacob. They might have been a bit reluctant because their father's house was all they ever knew, and they didn't see their identity outside of being shepherdesses and goat herdswomen. It's awesome the way God rewarded Jacob and how He told him that He was with him. Some say when it talks about the angel of the Lord, that's actually Jesus Christ in pre-incarnate form, before He came in flesh and bone, before He came into Mary's womb. Just like God saw Jacob's struggle, He sees our struggle, and He makes a way for us to overcome it. You can understand why Rachel and Leah was vexed. I guess they were pretty much ready to give up on Laban's family, on their dad. It's awesome how they were basically like God's voice, encouraging him to be obedient to God's calling. Perhaps He told them what He was wrestling with because He wanted them to second guess Him and took him out of it because he was scared to make a move. You got to wonder if Rachel had complete confidence in God because she took her father's statues. It's interesting that Laban was pursuing Jacob. We could surmise that he was intent on killing Jacob, but he didn't follow through with his plans. He was definitely intending to talk with Jacob. He might have just been wanting to have angry words with him. He was right to call Jacob out for deceiving him, or for taking his daughters away without making an issue of it. But maybe he was wrong because you know he might have never let his daughters go, and maybe he was just gaslighting and making excuses. It's possible that he would have had a party, but maybe the party would have never ended. Like he would have kept on delaying their departure. And it's interesting how he identified the one true God as the God of Jacob's father. You could say that Jacob was cursing his wife when he said that she wouldn't live if the idols were found with her, because she ended up dying in childbirth. But I don't think you can necessarily make that argument. Thank God that Rachel was protected from being destroyed before she had her final child, Benjamin. Thank God for his good.